Hello friends, looking at current affairs for 28th March, the news items picked up from the Hindu newspaper are these 10. We'll look at them in detail. The first one, Supreme Court counters push for Aadhaar. So we have been seeing in the last few days that how Aadhaar is being made mandatory for a large number of schemes now. So even various social welfare schemes like Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, then we have the pension schemes, then even the midday meal scheme, Aadhaar has been made mandatory. Not just this, even for mobile phone subscriptions, Aadhaar is being made mandatory. Then even for filing income tax returns, for availing PAN card, Aadhaar has been made mandatory. So it was in October 2015 when the Supreme Court had given its judgment. It was a constitutional bench which was looking into the case. You can see here it's mentioned. So in this, the constitution bench had said that voluntary usage of Aadhaar is allowed. So for social welfare schemes, voluntary usage was allowed. Means you cannot make it mandatory. It means that if somebody does not have an Aadhaar number, you cannot deny the social benefit to that person. So that was what the Supreme Court order was for the government. It said because there was not even the Aadhaar Act passed then. So now we have the Aadhaar Act passed as such. So the legitimization of the Aadhaar linkage is there through the Act. Even UIADI has now become a statutory body under the Act. So still the Supreme Court presently has given its order that it can only be a voluntary exercise because Supreme Court is still looking into the matter, and that is the matter regarding privacy. So privacy is compromised in this case or not, Supreme Court is going to give its judgment on that. So till that time, the government has been asked that you cannot make it mandatory for welfare schemes, and it has said that for non-welfare schemes, it can be made mandatory. Like for mobile connections, it can be done. Even for PAN card and filing income tax returns, Aadhaar being a precondition, that is allowed. So this is what the present Supreme Court statement is. You can see Aadhaar can be made mandatory for non-welfare activities. So that is fine. So it's still looking into the issue of Aadhaar as a violation of citizens' privacy. And in October 2015, Supreme Court had allowed voluntary usage of Aadhaar. So this was in October, voluntary usage of Aadhaar for MGNREGA and pension schemes, provident fund schemes, even Jan Dhan Yojana. But this was an extension actually. Before that, in August 2015, it had said Aadhaar can be used only for PDS and LPG distribution. So that was also voluntary. So this voluntary usage has been extended. Mandatory, it has presently said only for non-welfare activities like opening bank account, filing income tax returns, or applying for mobile connection. So this is the status of Aadhaar so far. Constitutional bench will further have hearings whether Aadhaar is violating citizens' privacy, and after the judgment has been given by the Supreme Court, then the government can go ahead and make it mandatory, because privacy is a major concern here, because in Aadhaar, biometric information is collected. So the safeguard of that biometric information, upholding the privacy of citizens, is an important issue. The next news item is suicide no more a crime. So this is the mental health care bill. This is a 2013 bill actually. It was introduced in the Rajya Sabha. So if a bill is introduced in the Rajya Sabha, it survives even after the Lok Sabha gets dissolved. So that's what it went to the Lok Sabha too, and now after being amended by the Lok Sabha, it has come back to the, after being amended by the Rajya Sabha, it has come back to the Lok Sabha and it has been passed. So this is the news presently that Lok Sabha has passed this bill. So this bill now makes that attempted suicide should be presumed as the person is suffering from severe stress, and it should not be tried or punished by law. So this is a major change which has taken place now through this amendment, through this mental health care bill. This will replace the earlier act which was there, Mental Health Care Act of 1987. So in this bill, another provision is that mental illness is clearly defined. And also now the bill says that an adult can make an advance directive. So an advance directive means beforehand he can decide how he wishes to be treated in case he gets mental illness in future. So this advance directive provision is also there. He can choose a nominative representative who would take care of him or her. So this provision is also there. Also, it is said to be a rights-based bill. So this rights-based approach is used, means the bill provides for treatment of mentally ill patients if they are homeless or fall below poverty line, even if they do not possess a BPL card. So this right to mental illness treatment, a form of health only, is being provided here. So this is the benefit. These are the salient features you can see of this bill. Definition of mental illness provided, right to access of mental health, advanced directive as we just discussed. Even before you can decide how should you be treated. Central and state mental health authorities will be set up. It changes the terminology. The psychiatric hospitals will now be called mental health establishments, and mental health review commissions and boards will also be set up. So this is the mental health care bill. Now suicide is no longer a crime. Then the next news item is BJP trying to sneak in corporate funding. So this is regarding the recent changes which have been made to the finance bill. So now you should understand the budget is being passed by the parliament. So actually the budget being passed means two bills being passed, appropriation bill and finance bill. So in the finance bill too, we have seen recently many amendments have been proposed, and these amendments come before the Lok Sabha. So Lok Sabha passes them, even though with respect to money matters, Rajya Sabha does not have any powers as such. So the thing is that these have been inserted in the amendments inserted in the finance bill and have got been passed. So what was not part of the budget speech of the finance minister too has now been passed by the parliament. So this is being opposed, and the opposition is raising its voice, because here in the sense of corporate funding too, this is actually an amendment being made to the Corporate Act, the Companies Act as such. So here the change which has been made is that for funding political parties, because we have seen in the budget also the major highlight was electoral bonds, how they are trying to bring in transparency in funding for political parties. So though anonymity is there, so with anonymity, how transparency comes in, that is the whole issue. Because the anonymity is that it cannot be known to which political party the person or a company has funded. So similar change has been made even the Companies Act. So for companies, actually they were allowed to provide funding to political parties up to 7.5% of their net profit in three financial years as such, the average net profit. So this was the provision. They have removed this cap. So now no more there's a cap. The companies can fund as much as they want to political parties, and even if they're going bankrupt. So this brings in more pressure on them to, if political parties ask them for funding, they have to pay. There is no official cap as such too. Plus earlier it was there that how much funding to which political party you're providing had to be revealed. Now they have provided that there's no need to reveal. So you fund as much as you want and you don't need to reveal to which political party you're funding. And of course the political parties don't have to reveal from which authority did they get the funds, because with electoral bonds again there is complete transparency, complete opacity I should say, which has been assured. Plus also the limit for cash, which has been brought down to 2,000 from 20,000 earlier, does not make any difference, because if 20,000 is the cap, means 2,000 means you can make it 10 times. If you make 10 times cash donations, then the limit still remains. So there is no sense. There's unlimited limit on cash deposits actually, because if 2,000 is the limit, then I can make 100 times 2,000 deposits, and or as many number of times as much as I want to make a contribution, because anonymity is also there. You don't need to reveal the source. So these are the kind of reforms which have been brought in to bring in transparency. Rather they are changing, amending and bringing in opacity. So that is being criticized by the opposition. So that's what is written. Removes cap on donations by individuals or companies to political parties. Even cash payments threshold, which was highlighted and said to be 3 lakh. So up to 3 lakh you can make cash payments. That has been reduced to 2 lakh. So this has been done through amendment. Aadhaar being made mandatory for PAN cards. So this finance bill means part of the budget that has been amended, and this has been done. So this again means it's not part of the budget, and now amendment is being proposed in the Lok Sabha. A budget announcement as such. So this is an Income Tax Act amendments have also been done, giving more powers to IT officers in seizing, raiding. So even raiding properties where charities operate. So they've got the right. So this all is what the opposition is speaking of in the Rajya Sabha. Then the next news item is Navy bids farewell to long-range maritime patrol aircraft. So this is regarding the Tu-142M long-range maritime patrol aircraft, which has served the Indian Navy for around 3 decades, 30 years. Now it will be de-inducted. It was acquired from former USSR in 1988. So it has taken part in various naval exercises, major exercises which India had, like Operation Cactus in Maldives, Operation Vijay of 1998. This was in Goa, and Operation Parakram in 2002, and various anti-piracy operations also. So this will be replaced now by Boeing P-8I aircraft, which has been newly inducted. So these operations which have been mentioned, a little of post-independence history is here. So Operation Cactus, this was in 1988 when Maldives, the island, the archipelago, you can say island nation, which asked for India's help. So this in Maldives, what had happened was around 80 armed militants had come here. So seaboats carrying them had come. These were PLOTE. So PLOTE stands for People's Liberation Organization of Tamil Eelam. So the LTT was different. This is PLOTE. So they landed in Maldives along with allies, and who had already infiltrated the country, and they wanted to take over the government. The Maldives president actually asked for India's help. That time it was Maumoon Abdul Gayoom. So he fled from the capital, Malé, and he asked military aid from India. And within hours, India provided military aid. Then Prime Minister of India was Mr. Rajiv Gandhi. Around 1,600 troops went to the aid of the government, and that operation which was initiated was codenamed Operation Cactus. So within 12 hours, you can say, of the request, they came in and they squashed the coup attempt. So they achieved full control of the country within a few hours itself. So this Indian intervention in Maldives to uphold the government there was appreciated worldwide by various powers like US, Soviet Union, Great Britain. Even our neighbors like Nepal and Bangladesh appreciated India's intervention on request. So this was the development then, and India-Maldives relations also strengthened. Then Operation Vijay of 1961 was for liberation of Goa. The Portuguese had control over these regions, Daman and Dadra and Nagar Haveli, Daman and Diu, and Goa. So here, these regions, the Operation Vijay was for the liberation of Goa in 1961 from Portuguese, and Operation Parakram was in 2002 for military deployment along LOC. So after the Indian Parliament attack, India wanted to retaliate. So it had brought in military deployment along the LOC. So though there was a standoff, a full-scale war got averted. So that was called Operation Parakram then. Then the next news item is a new frontier for active TB diagnosis. So for TB diagnosis, presently what is used is sputum samples being diagnosed. So the sputum sample tests look for presence of live bacteria. So these tests are actually difficult with children because getting the sputum for children is difficult. And also if it is not pulmonary, extrapulmonary TB. Pulmonary means affecting the lungs. So if it is extrapulmonary TB, then in those cases sputum samples don't work. Then we require the taking the samples through biopsy. So in these biopsy samples are needed in case of EPDB, means extrapulmonary TB cases. So here that's why now what has been developed is a rapid blood test. So this rapid blood test relies on detecting two proteins for diagnosis and quantification of the severity of active TB. So this is being developed now. So this blood test, you can see it detects minute levels of two biomarkers. So these two biomarkers are what TB bacteria release only during active infections. So with this rapid blood test, then TB can be easily diagnosed. And of course, if diagnosis is quick, then it results in treatment being provided as well as curbing TB steps can be taken. Our target of eliminating TB by 2025 can be achieved. So this is there even in case of HIV positive patients, they have their immunity down. So TB generally is what affects them, and this HIV related TB cases also can be detected by rapid blood test. There's another technique which is there, the recent technique which is highly appreciated, that is GeneXpert. So this GeneXpert has been introduced a few years ago to improve the sensitivity and specificity. But then even this test relies on sputum samples only. So that is even World Health Organization has said that expert has very low quality evidence for extrapulmonary TB diagnosis. So with that case, now this rapid blood test can be the futuristic test which can be taken over. So that is being discussed. Then the next news item is Supreme Court for policy to curb farmer suicides. So we know the Supreme Court is looking on the serious issue of farmer suicides comprehensively and asking the central government and the state governments about what is the policy which they have developed and what are they planning to do to tackle this issue. So the government, central government has said that government is coming up with a comprehensive policy to address this problem, and already government has initiated measures like they are directly procuring food grains from the farmers at MSP, minimum support prices. So there'll be no middlemen or market as such coming in. So this will result in better money coming in the hands of the farmers directly. So that is one step which has been taken, and they say that insurance cover has been increased for the farmers. So this is the central government steps which are being spoken up in the Supreme Court by the additional solicitor general, that is the advocate to the government as such. So if they say insurance cover has also been increased for farmers. So earlier insurance cover was only for those farmers who took agricultural loans, but now it has been extended to all farmers. So these 2 points are clearly highlighted. Though farmers' suicide is a huge concern, in the last few years we have seen around 3,000 farmers who have committed suicide. So now Supreme Court is looking into the matter and hearings are taking place, and we'll hear about these issues, these statements coming in often now. Then the next news item is India-Nepal renew fuel pact. So India and Nepal have renewed their supply of petroleum agreement for a period of 5 years. So this agreement we have had with Nepal since 1974. So petroleum and petroleum products are provided by Indian Oil to Nepal since then. Also, we are working on building a pipeline for petroleum products between Motihari in Bihar till Amlekhgunj in here. It's Amlekhgunj in Nepal. So we are working on that too. Even pipeline for supplying LPG, liquefied petroleum gas, between the two countries is also being discussed. So this is regarding India, Nepal. You should also know about the states with which Nepal and Indian states with which Nepal has boundary. So you can see Sikkim, West Bengal, Bihar, Uttar Pradesh. These are the countries with which Nepal shares a boundary. And also this is Uttarakhand here. So also such questions are asked: with which among the following states does Nepal share boundary with among the following Indian states? So then you will have these options. So you should know specifically which states share their boundary with Nepal. So prelims such objective type questions are asked. Then the next news item is not for 101 cold chain projects. So now the central government has sanctioned that 101 new integrated cold chain projects would be set up. So this infrastructure for food processing sector would be provided for with an investment of around 3,100 crores. So this is the incentive which will be provided, subsidy which will be provided by the government. The private sector funding will also come in, means there will be grants in aid and balance would be from private sector. You can see for these projects 838 crore would be the total grants in aid. So such cold chain projects have been initiated earlier too. In 2015 there were 30 sanctioned, later 50 more were sanctioned, and now 101 more have been sanctioned. So these cold storage projects are very important for the country because we have a huge amount of food wastage. So food is perishable commodity, fruits, vegetables, even food grains. So for this purposes we require food processing centers plus also cold storages. So these cold storages would help in increasing the farmers' income too by reducing wastage in the entire agri supply chain. Even huge employment opportunities are also there if such projects are established. So that's why this financial assistance would be provided. So it says financial assistance up to 10 crores for entrepreneurs would be provided in this project. So these 101 new projects, you can see 53 are for fruits and vegetables, 33 are for dairy, fish, meat, marine, poultry, ready to eat, ready to cook sectors are also being provided these cold storages. So you can see the various states are also involved in this. Also there is a study by the Central Institute of Post-Harvest Engineering and Technology which said that total wastage of fruits and vegetables in 2014 based on wholesale prices was 92,000 crores. So such a huge amount of wastage which takes place can be reduced. So with these project coming in, even this, it is said that the wastage would reduce by 13%. So India is one of the largest food producers. We are the second largest producers of fruits and vegetables in the world. Only 2.2% of our fruits and vegetables are actually processed. So that is a very low percentage. So that is why we need cold storage facilities, so that food processing also takes place. So that's what it is, that we are building a national cold chain grid in the country. So that is the Food Processing Industry Ministry is building this, so that all food producing hubs are connected to cold storage and processing industry. So that will be a complete grid, that food producing hubs, then cold storage grids and processing industries all are connected. So that is about this. Then the next news item is digital platform to help railways save 60,000 crores. So this is an ERP system which was proposed by the railway minister, and now it is being worked on. So this is again been endorsed by the rail minister. He says that such IT based platform for integration and planning will be very much beneficial. It will result in huge savings for the railways. So what this enterprise resource planning software does, it covers all aspects. So like it will do cost analysis, attendance, accounting, asset management, even medical management, land management would all be taken care of by this IT software. So this is called IR1 ICT. So this is the digital platform which is being proposed. So it says that around 10,000 to 12,000 crores of investment will be required for this digital platform IR1 ICT. And once it is established, it will result in benefits worth 50 to 60,000 crores for the Indian Railways in the long run. It also, the finance minister, the railway minister said that passenger complaints were the best pieces of information. So even if these are analyzed and informed decisions are taken based on this, then a lot of savings can also take place and efficiency increased. So this is about this ERP software, IR1 ICT. Then the next news item, the last one is BS3 fuel vehicles will not become redundant, center. So BS stands for Bharat Stage. So these are various stages of fuel emission norms. So Bharat Stage is running parallel to Euro fuel emission norms, which are there in Europe, and these run a stage later, means we are lagging behind, means Bharat Stage 1 is Euro 2 and so on. So presently what we are proposing to have implemented worldwide across the entire country is Bharat Stage 4. So these are scheduled to come into force from 1st April 2017 presently in a few days. So that is why Bharat Stage 4 emission norms will be brought in. So still we have Bharat Stage 3 compliant vehicles which are running on Bharat Stage 3 fuels. Around 19 crore such vehicles are there. So Supreme Court is looking into this matter of pollution. So pollution, especially in Delhi, National Capital Territory and the satellite regions, here the court has said that air pollution levels are increasing alarmingly. So various vehicles have been, outdated vehicles have to be scrapped as well. So now the Supreme Court is questioning on these vehicles which are running on Bharat Stage 3 fuel. So the center has now stated that these vehicles will not become redundant because these vehicles can also be upgraded to BS4 model. So this is what the center has stated. So they will not become redundant, they can still function. Even these manufacturers, they are saying in the court that they were allowed to sell their stocks of old emission norms vehicles earlier too. So when Bharat Stage 2 was introduced in 2005, Bharat Stage 3 was introduced in 2010. In those two times, previous occasions too, they say even when new technology was brought in, the old emission norms vehicles were allowed to be sold. So that is why they want such relaxation even presently too. So what would be the Supreme Court stand on this matter, we don't know. But of course the center has said that they can be upgraded as well. So we'll have to wait and watch what will be done in this matter now. And this is regarding the various stages you can see. So we already saw Bharat Stage 2 in 2005. Bharat Stage 3 is there presently in rest of India except 13 states where 13 cities where Bharat Stage 4 has already been introduced. So in prominent cities, we have already introduced Bharat Stage 4 in 2010 itself, these 13 cities. And remaining rest of India are still on Bharat Stage 3, and as we saw just now that 1st April 2017, Bharat Stage 4 emission norms will be there throughout the country. Also, Bharat Stage 5 norms are to be implemented starting from 2019 and Bharat Stage 6 from 2023. So what has been suggested is Bharat Stage 5 can be skipped and directly we jump to Bharat Stage 6. So that would be implemented by 2020. So this is also a provision suggestion which had come forth. So even the oil refineries had said that we are ready. So this you can see the investment would be needed. So investment needed to upgrade to, because fuel has also to be upgraded so that they can work with those engines. So fuel quality also has to be upgraded and engines also have to be upgraded. So refineries will have work to do and car makers will also have to work on the engines. So refineries in India, they said that to upgrade to Bharat stage 5 or 6, it is similar. So if we skip 5 and go to 6, we don't have any problem. So refineries had no problem. But car makers said that they would require much bigger investment if we would go directly to Bharat stage 6, and that will be very sudden given the short span of time now. So that was their viewpoint. Because for Bharat stage 5, this diesel particulate filter is required, and for Bharat stage 6, apart from this diesel particulate filter, even selective catalytic reduction technology is required. So the government has already announced that Bharat stage 5 would be skipped. But till date, presently, the status is that from 1st April 2017, Bharat stage 4 will be brought in all over the country. So that is it. These are the news items. Thank you.